Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Welcome if you're new here. So I'm gonna jump right into the video. I wanted to talk about how to get yourself out of no contact with your specific person. So let's get right into the video. So first things first, the most important thing that you have to figure out before you even think about manifesting yourself out of no contact is checking where your nervous system is at. And the reason why I'm saying this is, and if you're not new here, you know I haven't really been the biggest fan of self-concept work in the past, and my stance has since changed when it comes to that, is the fact that you can manifest yourself out of no contact temporarily, but if your nervous system isn't regulated and your self-concept isn't where it should be, chances are you're probably going to get hot and cold behavior, or you're going to get inconsistency in terms of like how your specific person shows up, not if they're showing up, but how they're showing up. It would be really, really beneficial for you to, first of all, check where is your nervous system at. And the reason for that is a lot of people think that the anxiety when it comes to no contact or like even third parties and things like that is about not being chosen, which is technically true. But from a primal standpoint, you have to understand that in the past, not being chosen or being abandoned or ghosted, if you will, meant threat to your survival because you were basically excluded from your tribe. And if you didn't have a tribe, it was very difficult for you to even consider staying alive in these circumstances. You needed your tribe to help you figure out what to do or help you with certain things. And when you are in no contact with your specific person, that same part of your brain is being activated, and to you it feels like literal survival. Some people don't get that reaction, but if you are someone who gets that kind of reaction, which is why I said check your nervous system, it can feel life-threatening to you if you are not checking to see where am I at and do I need to regulate my nervous system when it comes to that, because not being in no contact with your specific person should not give you this intense of a nervous system response. But again, our brain isn't really logical when it comes to those things. It just connects it in a way that makes the most sense. And if you've had bad experiences or you have like childhood trauma around it or something like that, it can feel like abandonment to you. And that's why it's so important to first of all check, where am I sitting with this? Do I need to do nervous system regulation? Or if you are someone who doesn't really want to do nervous system regulation, which, hey, I totally understand, you cannot pay me to do breathing techniques, you still need to be very mindful and very careful of when you are doing your technique, whatever chosen technique it is. So when you are having anxious thoughts or even like a nervous system reaction or anything like that, you can affirm through it if you want, but at the end of the day, and I actually made a TikTok about this, what you're doing is you're creating cognitive dissonance and you're gaslighting yourself. It's not really helpful. So you would be better off riding out the storm, waiting until you're more calm, even if it seems difficult in the moment, and then spend the rest of your time that you have where you are actually regulated, affirming or journaling or using subliminals or visualizing or whatever it is, because in that state, your subconscious is way more receptive and actually is like, wait a minute, we feel safe right now. This is our new state. Okay, maybe this is something we should listen to and think about. Because the more you do that, even if you have like 5 panic attacks a day, every time you utilize time when you're calm to do your technique, your brain will take that in as, okay, this is actually contradicting what we normally know. So let's kind of listen and see what happens. And the more you do it over time, your anxiety will automatically go away. I can tell you this from personal experience. And it's not going to be fun in the beginning and your brain might go into overdrive. But when I was affirming my specific anxiety away, I never ever did anything to regulate it. I sometimes tried to talk through it, but it didn't really work. So I just tried to utilize every moment that I had when I wasn't being triggered. And it took about, I think, 2 weeks or so for the really, really big emotions to kind of subside and go away. And then they kind of became background noise and the thoughts became less and less. And I started to realize I'm not even thinking about it anymore as much. And then the more you do it, the more your brain will accept the new state. But when you're doing affirmations, especially when you're like hounding them in, what you're trying to do is basically get an overnight result. But with self-concept, it's more like a steady flow. It's not going to be a flip overnight. It's going to be more like a continuous result where every morning you wake up, you might notice now it's not as bad today. Or you might wake up one morning and be like, well, this still feels bad, but I don't feel the desire to check, or I don't feel the desire to text anymore. So you are going to notice an improvement pretty quickly. But if you want to manifest no contact and stay out of no contact, I would highly, highly recommend that you definitely look into that if you are someone who is highly triggered. And if you are someone who is not really triggered by it and you're like, I don't really care, I just want to manifest myself out of no contact, then you can go to the second step and choose whichever whatever technique you prefer to do. And we always get this question of like which technique is the right technique, and it's the one you can stick with the most. I would highly recommend that you look into your astrology. Your moon sign can help you dictate what is best for you. Your Mercury sign can also help. I can make a specific, like a separate video for it if anybody wants to kind of get the rundown for that quickly if they don't want to do their own research. But I, for example, used affirmations. I used my ASMR technique. For the nervous system regulation stuff, for example, I had to use journaling because I realized that any other technique was A, too triggering for me, or B, I just couldn't stick with it long enough. So journaling was the way for me to go. And then I actually switched to subliminals, and now I do both. But the technique that you can show up for every single day without fail is the correct one for you. And if in the middle of it you realize, hey, I'm actually not interested in this technique anymore, I want to switch to a different one, you can. There is no reason why you shouldn't. There is nothing wrong with that, because your brain at the end of the day does not care how you put the new information into your brain. Even if, you are switching from technique to technique, it's not going to make any difference about how quickly your manifestation is going to show up for you or not. The only thing that you need to be careful about is thinking that you need to switch techniques because one isn't working for you, because you're not seeing results fast enough, or you keep checking the 3D, or you're wavering. Those are two completely separate things. I'm talking literally about when you notice that you're feeling good and you're still not showing up for your method for whatever reason, you're low on dopamine, or you're not interested, or you just feel like, yeah, this is not really for me anymore. That is when you then switch to a different technique and stay steady in that until you can either follow through with that one, or you need to switch to a new one. Because I, for example, tried journaling so many times and I could never ever stick with it. This is the first time I've actually stuck with journaling, and it's been working for me. So sometimes it's also the topic that dictates which method is best for you. So like I said, journaling is good for self-concept in my case, but if I want to manifest something else, I might visualize, or I might use subliminals, or I might affirm. It kind of just depends on the topic and how you feel about it. So that would be the second step. And then the third step is to be really crystal clear about what it is that you actually want. Do you just want an apology? Do you want continuous contact? Do you want them to just think about you and send you little signs, or blow up your DMs, or whatever you want? Your brain does not interpret things the way you send it out to be like, well, I want this, but I hope I'm getting this. Be very crystal clear about what you want and then stick to it. And so the way that I like to make my affirmations or journaling is basically, I'm not even thinking about how it would sound if I told it to somebody, or I'm curating them. I'm literally just no, this is it. I state it as matter of fact as I can. It's normally short, it's to the point, it's boring. Let's say, for example, I would want to manifest a new car. I would be like, I have a new car, or I have my perfect car, or something like that. Or if I were to say, I want to talk to my specific person, I want them to message me, it'd be like, my specific person messaged me. They texted me, or, or they text me every day, or they apologized, or whatever, So very short, very matter of fact, because the thing is this, once you took the time to really figure out what you want and get crystal clear on it, your brain will very likely automatically create either a vision or a feeling or a thought, or depending on how your brain processes, that is very short and matter of fact, and that is what you should be using. You shouldn't be overthinking it, because your brain will know what you mean by it if you are laying the groundwork. Your brain will always know what you want, but depending on where your self-concept is at and your experiences, you can sometimes get these results where people are well, I manifested a text message, but it wasn't what I wanted. Get crystal clear on what you want, and your brain will give it to you. I will make a different video about the difference between visualization and daydreaming and maladaptive daydreaming, and also the fact that actually not every brain visualizes the same. There are, I think, 3 or 4 categories of how you can actually visualize. So someone giving you a one size fits all advice on how to visualize, or using meditative visualization videos. If you are someone that used to use them and they didn't work for you, it wasn't you doing it wrong or not doing it enough, probably, most likely. There was probably a reason in terms of your biology as to why it didn't work for you. So yeah, get crystal clear on what you want and go with whatever comes to you first, because your brain technically tells you how it wants you to manifest. So don't try to force affirmations if you're someone who can't affirm. Don't force visualization if it comes, if it doesn't come easy to you. How does your brain naturally operate on an everyday basis? Not everybody thinks in words. Not everybody thinks in thoughts. Not everybody thinks in pictures. I know someone who thinks in colors. So it's not always a one size fits all. You need to curate that experience for you as tailored to you as you can, because that will get you the fastest result, because you're working with your brain and not against it. And the last advice I can give you, and I've again actually made a TikTok about it, is don't check the 3D. There is never ever a good enough reason for you to go and check the 3D or meddle in the 3D. If you are supposed to take inspired action, you will know. I actually had this the other day. There was something that I thought about like randomly. I wasn't really invested in it or anything, but I was like, yeah, this will definitely happen. And then I found myself on the internet, and all of a sudden I was like, my brain was like, hey, should we look up this? And before I could even like consciously intervene, my brain was already looking it up, and I was like, there it is. It took me 10 days technically after it already happened to find out about it, which again made no difference to me because it was already moving in the background. There's always movement in the background. Okay, we know this even if you don't see movement in the front, but don't go checking for it, because only one of two things can happen if you check the 3D reality. Number one, you see something that is unfavorable to your new state, which means it kicks you out of the new state immediately into the old one. It will reaffirm to you that you either aren't doing it right, or you're unchosen, or whatever your story is around no contact, or that this person doesn't like you or has a third party, or whatever the case may be. The second thing is that you may actually not find anything, and a lot of people probably assume that if you don't find anything, it's a good sign. But what you're actually doing is you are teaching your nervous system yet again that you need to externalize safety in order to feel safe, which means you will never ever get out of the loop of checking the 3D reality. The best thing you can hope for is dual results. Again, the hot and cold behavior, you're in two states. You can manifest contact and still be unchosen, because a lot of people say, oh, if I get ghosted, it's about like not being chosen and not being prioritized. That's true, but again, you can oscillate between those two and always be like in the 50% middle of it, where you're like, you're over here 1 minute and then you're over here the next minute, and they can absolutely coexist at the same time. So don't think that if you are checking and you can't find anything, it's a good sign because, oh, it didn't manifest or my anxieties don't manifest. What you're actually doing is just telling your nervous system that as long as you are checking, your nervous system is safe. But that will also mean that you will never ever get out of the new state of checking. You will never ever go into the new state of actually being chosen and being in contact with them. And if you keep up the anxious thoughts, eventually your brain will be like, hey, we kind of feel really safe when we're checking, but we're checking for this particular reason. Maybe we need to create something that is worth checking for. Anxieties do manifest. Do they manifest immediately? 9 times out of 10, they don't. Oftentimes, it takes a very, very long time or very consistent programming to manifest. There are anxious thoughts that will never, ever manifest, but they can and they do manifest depending on how you act. And I'll give you an example. Let's say, for example, you have an anxious thought about the person you want will date you, but they will never, ever choose you in the end. And you have this anxious thought over and over again, right? Oh, what if something happens? What if something happens? But this person isn't acting in a certain way just yet because your anxiety has not manifested yet. It hasn't come through yet all the way. So I will make a separate video about anxiety if you guys want. But again, one of two things will happen in this case. You will either stick with it long enough that it will manifest, or you will start acting in line with your anxiety to soothe yourself. You will start checking the 3D. You will misinterpret things in a way that they're not technically supposed to be interpreted, because at the end of the day, everything is neutral. Everything goes through you and your perception. Everything that you see that spikes your anxiety has gone through your personal program, which is why two people can experience the same thing and completely have different memories of it, different experiences, whatever. And then you will start acting in line with that, which will then make your anxiety come true that this person may love you, but they will never ever choose you. They will never be with you. They will choose third parties over you, whatever the case may be. So keep that in mind. There is never ever a good time to check the 3D. There's never any reason, and there's never any reason to force it, because you can manifest contact easily. And I'll give you an example. Actually, one of my friends who I used to get massages from back when I first met her, I never texted her first. Because I was just so scatterbrained at the time. But every time I thought about her, I was like, damn, I have to text her today. I really got to check in with her. I kid you not, it would take like maybe 3 to 4 hours. And by like 8 o'clock at night, I would get like a text message from her and be like, hey, just thought of you, just checking in, without fail. Every single time it worked. Or when my best friend like is at work and I think of something and I'm like, man, we're hanging out tonight. I could really I feel like I really want, I don't know, fast food today. She will always text me without fail. I can even put a screenshot in here if I remember. The other day I was thinking about chili and she even texted me, but hey, do you actually want chili cheese fries? And I was like, you know I do. But she knows that when I have food at home and I specially prepared something, she knows that I would much rather eat at home than eat fast food. I'm telling you, thought transmission works without fail. And obviously with those two people, there's no blockage because there's no unregulated nervous system to interfere with what I'm manifesting. But I'm not going and checking my phone and thinking like, oh my God, did she text me about chili? Should I text her about chili? It was just so inconsequential to me in my day because I knew I had other food. It was just a random desire that I had that I didn't even think to go and check. And before I knew it, that text message was there. And that is exactly what will happen to you. If you stay steady in your story, you have a regulated nervous system and you know exactly where you're at and you know exactly that that your specific person will message you and you will get out of no contact with them because the law cannot fail you, which is why you don't have to go and check. And I actually used this example in my most recent TikTok. If I ask you how old you are, if I ask you what your date of birth is, do you go and check your birth certificate? You don't. You know when your birthday is. Same thing applies. And if you stay steady in that, you will get out of no contact so fast. If you need to regulate your nervous system, chances are you might have to tack on a couple days, but please remember that you can do self-concept work and manifest what it is you want at the exact same time. You don't have to do it separately. I would definitely recommend doing like 2 separate sessions for it. So I have 2 journals, for example, one for desires and one for self-concept. And I also have 2 separate subliminals. Again, there are a couple subliminal makers you can trust. I personally make subliminals for this channel, but the ones I initially used generalized ones and then went to tailored ones that I made for myself, which definitely spiked me again because it's almost like you going through the layers of your subconscious, which can happen, by the way, if you're doing self-regulation work. Again, I have so many videos ideas. Like if you guys want to see any videos about it, just drop me a comment or whatever. Quick fact, my phone is still being worked on, so I can't access any DMs right now on Instagram, but I got a text, we're working on it, so it should be back soon. But either way, you cannot fail in this manifestation. Like your manifestation cannot pass you by. Your specific person will contact you. You are not too late. It's never too late. No matter what the circumstances are around you, there is never ever a time where you cannot choose a different state and a different identity that will put you in the new reality where you are chosen, where they are out of contact with you, and then whatever you want to do with them, whether it's just an apology, whether you want them back, whether you want to date them, like whatever the case may be. It cannot fail you. Your manifestation is yours, but there are certain steps you have to take. And I'm telling you right now, especially when it comes to nervous system regulation, it is only hard once. It is only hard that one and only time that you have to stick it out. And if you fix your foundation, your groundwork, any other manifestation after that will flow so much easier. So I know why a lot of people avoid it. I know I have avoided it for a very long time. But if you are getting out of no contact or you want to get out of no contact, I would recommend asking yourself, why do you actually want to get out of no contact? Is this person so important to you that you feel like you can't feel peace without them? And that is when it's especially important for you to do self-concept work, because at the end of the day, I've always said this, everybody is manifestable, everybody is replaceable. I don't care who you're manifesting, and your nervous system being regulated and you being peaceful within yourself is way more important than any person you could ever want to be in contact with, because the last thing you want to do is manifest codependency by saying I can only feel regulated when they're with me, which is something you can manifest, and a lot of people do manifest. I see that on TikTok all the time where they're like, my brain is quiet now because he's with me and he treats me nice. That is not healing, that is codependency. And again, externalizing your nervous system regulation, giving it to somebody else when you shouldn't even be giving this person free will to begin with, because there is no such thing. Neville said it, other coaches will tell you, the law is very clear. You are the only main character. Everybody else is an NPC. Nobody else is in control, because nobody can see through your perception. Nobody can filter through your brain. Nobody can control your subconscious unless you let them, but they still technically can't. It's just you letting it in. And that is why Neville will tell you and other people will tell you it starts and ends with self. There is no one to change but self. Okay, including your specific person. The fact that you even got in no contact with them was also a result of you being unregulated and you having all of these negative thoughts about them. And you know that. I don't want you to beat yourself up for it, but the number one thing I get like challenged about when I try to coach people in my private life, when I try to help them, is like, well, but why aren't they acting better? They can't. You're the problem. And it sucks to hear that. And it sucks to face yourself with that, because when something goes wrong in my life, I always immediately go to the thought of like, oh my God, what was I manifesting? Like, where was I thinking that? Where did that come from? But the beauty of it is, even though you are the problem, you are also the solution. You do not have to be upset about anybody else or worry that you're not in control or feel like the world is just against you. Just like you are the problem, you are also the solution. And I feel like I would much rather have the responsibility of being in control of manifesting certain things while also having the privilege to be able to change it and not having to ask anybody permission for that. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. As you heard, we're starting to go a little crazy because we are all very hungry. It is dinner time. If you guys have any more questions, please leave comments down below and let me know what kind of topic you want to see next. Like I said, I have so many ideas in a list and I really want to get all of them out. I just don't get to filming as much anymore these days as I like to. Try to get on top of that again. But yeah, let me know what you would like to see next. I might even do a poll on my community tab depending. Like, subscribe, all of those things. And when my phone is back and I'll be able to access DMs and stuff again, I will let you know. And I will see you in the next video.